She's practically part of the marriage, my husband joked at the dinner table. Everyone laughed. My best friend Emily raised her glass and leaned toward him. Careful, she said with a smile. If I'm around this much, people might get ideas. The table laughed again. I smiled too. But something about the way they looked at each other lingered a second too long. It was subtle, easy to ignore. And for a long time, I did. What I didn't know then was that this dinner would later become the moment I replayed in my mind the most. Because a few months after that night, something happened that made every laugh at that table sound different. If you enjoy stories about quiet strength and the moments that reveal people for who they really are, consider subscribing. These are the kinds of stories where the truth doesn't rush. It arrives slowly. Emily had been in my life for almost 15 years. College roommate, emergency contact, the person who helped me pick my wedding dress. She knew every chapter of my life. She held my hand the day I married Daniel. She cried harder than my own sister during the vows. And after the wedding, she remained exactly where she had always been. Close. She came to holidays, weekend dinners, last-minute movie nights. When Daniel and I bought our house, Emily helped us paint the living room. Looking back, she was present in almost every memory. At the time, it felt comforting. Trust makes things quiet. It makes small moments feel harmless. But there were little things, tiny pauses in conversation, inside jokes I didn't remember starting. Once I walked into the kitchen, and they both stopped talking. Daniel said casually, "We were just talking about surprise parties." Emily laughed. I laughed too, but that wasn't the part that stayed with me. It was how quickly they changed the subject. Still, I told myself something simple. Emily was my best friend. Daniel was my husband. There was no reason to imagine anything else. That belief lasted until the first real crack appeared. It happened at a small birthday gathering for Emily, just 6 of us around her apartment table. At one point someone joked, "Emily, you practically live at their house." Emily smiled. Then she said something that made the room go quiet. "Well, Daniel does make better coffee than she does," everyone chuckled. It sounded harmless, but the way she said it felt strangely personal. Daniel looked down at his drink. Not embarrassed, more like comfortable. I said nothing. But that night I noticed something else. When we left, Daniel already knew where Emily kept her spare apartment key. He picked it up from the kitchen counter and handed it to her without asking. Like he'd done it before, I didn't mention it, but I remembered. And strangely, that moment was only the beginning. Weeks passed, life stayed normal, but small patterns started surfacing. Emily texting Daniel directly about plans. Daniel knowing things about her schedule before I did. Once, while we were watching a movie, Daniel said casually, "Emily's meeting got pushed to Thursday." I paused the movie. "How do you know that?" He shrugged. She mentioned it earlier, except I had spoken to Emily that afternoon. She hadn't mentioned it to me. I told myself not to read too much into it. But something in my mind quietly started paying attention. Have you ever ignored a feeling because you didn't want the answer? That's exactly where I was. Then came the moment that changed everything. It was a Saturday morning. Daniel had left his laptop open on the kitchen island while he ran out to grab coffee. A message notification popped up, Emily's name. I wasn't planning to read it. I truly wasn't. But the preview line appeared on the screen. "Last night was fun. We should be more careful, though." My hands froze. I didn't open the message. Not yet. Instead, I closed the laptop slowly and sat there because part of me hoped there was still an explanation. But that quiet moment became the first time I allowed myself to ask a question I'd been avoiding. What if I wasn't imagining things? If you were in that position, would you have opened the message? I waited an entire day. That night, Daniel went to shower. The laptop sat on the table again. This time I opened it. There weren't hundreds of messages, just a thread, short conversations, inside jokes, and plans, nothing explicit. But the tone was unmistakably intimate. One message stood out. Emily had written, "Do you think she suspects anything?" Daniel replied 30 minutes later, "No, she trusts you more than anyone." I closed the laptop, not because I was shocked, but because suddenly everything made sense. That was the mini-climax of the story, the moment the truth stopped hiding. But I still didn't confront anyone, not yet, because sometimes the most revealing moment comes when people believe no one is watching. A few days later, I invited Emily and Daniel to dinner. Just the three of us, same dining table where that old joke had been made months earlier. Emily arrived first. She hugged me like always. Daniel came home 10 minutes later. Everything felt normal. Conversation flowed easily. Halfway through dinner, I said calmly, "You two seem really comfortable together." Emily smiled. "Well, we've known each other forever." Daniel nodded. I poured more wine. Then I said something simple. I read the messages. Silence. Not loud silence, just the kind that changes the air in a room. Daniel didn't deny it. Emily didn't speak. I didn't raise my voice. Instead, I slid Daniel's laptop across the table. I think honesty would be easier now. Daniel exhaled slowly. Emily stared at the table. Then she said quietly, "It wasn't supposed to happen like this." What surprised me most wasn't the betrayal. It was how small their confidence suddenly looked. They had built everything on secrecy. Without it, the entire structure collapsed quietly. That night ended without shouting. Emily left first. Daniel packed a bag. No dramatic confrontation, just consequences arriving naturally. Months have passed since then. Emily moved to another city. Daniel and I finalized the divorce last spring. People sometimes ask if I regret trusting her so much. I don't. Trust didn't make me weak. It revealed who they were. And strangely, the dinner table where everything unraveled now feels peaceful again. Because the truth, once it arrives, has a way of making the room quieter. If you've ever experienced a moment where someone revealed their real character in silence, you already understand this story. And if this story resonated with you, feel free to share your thoughts or experiences below. Sometimes the quietest stories carry the most truth.